Hi guys, hope you all doing well, and this will be the second video of the entire series that I will be creating for multi-factor authentication server. And in this video we are going to talk about the installation of user portal. But before that, the very first thing that we should know that what is user portal. So likewise, you have a website named as aka.ms/MFA setup, wherein the proof of process is completed by the user. That means you go ahead, log in there, set up your details to get the second factor authentication completed. In the same way, for your on-prem setup, you have user portal. It's actually an IIS website which has a dependency on IIS. So before going ahead and configuring user portal, make sure you have IIS installed on the same server where we're going to deploy user portal. Second thing, this is a website again which can be used by users to get themselves enrolled for MFA, and the same portal will be used by the user to update the MFA settings. You can deploy the user portal on the same server where you have Azure MFA installed, or you can choose a different server as well. But make sure that the server on which you're going to install user portal that has internet connectivity. Now the fundamental behind this is that when the users will try to log into user portal from an external network, they should be able to reach and they should be able to update MFA settings. Now, the next thing that we are going to talk about a couple of prerequisites and how to begin with setting up user portal. The first thing that, as I said before, would require will be installation of IIS, and there are a couple of prerequisites which I'll be sharing and which I will be showing in the lab itself that needs to be selected before you go ahead with the installation. This component of MFA server has a complete dependency on web service SDK that will be installed from the console itself. That is also something which I will be showing in the demo. One more thing that you need is a SSL certificate. So if you're doing this from a proof of concept perspective, just set up an internal CA and request for a computer certificate or SSL cert, and we can use the same certificate to bind with the website just to check how the product works. After getting the certificate binded, we also need an admin account on the local machine as well as domain, because this is an account that will be used to add a particular user account that will be created for user portal, or that is something actually which is used by user portal, and getting that account added in the security group on phone factor admins. Now let me switch to my VM where we'll proceed with the setup and installation of the user portal. Now, the first thing that I would like to show is that the account that I'm using for setting up MFA user portal, and and the account that I used for setting up MFA server as well, that's actually an account which has enterprise admin privilege and which is also a domain admin. So that means what? The server or the machine on which I'm going to log in on that particular machine, I will by default get the access of local admin. So this is my DC wherein I have a user account with which is an enterprise admin and sort of local admin as well. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to that machine in which we are going to go ahead with the installation of the user portal. And here I am logged in with the same account. Now, the very first thing, as I discussed before, is that this has a dependency on web service SDK. So we'll click on this and we'll click on install web service SDK. Now the very first thing that we will get will be that this feature has a dependency, and make sure that you have checked the prerequisite, and the moment you will click on next, what you will get that IIS component is missing. And why it is missing is because I have not installed that IIS component on this particular machine. Now, since that component is not present, even if you will click on next, the setup will not continue. So what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and install IIS. So for that, I'll go to Server Manager. I'll click on Add and Roles feature, and then I'll click on Next. And from here, what we'll do is we'll select Web Server. That means we are going to install IIS. Now, once you have selected web server, there are a couple of other components as well, which are dependent and which also needs to be installed. And out of those, the very first one that you need will be the 4.6. So if you go by the documentation, it says .NET, the current documentation. In fact, it says that you need ASP.NET 4.5, but since we have 4.6, the latest one, we'll go ahead with this. It also has a dependency on IIS 6 metabase compatibility, so make sure this option is also selected. And apart from this, we also need the basic authentication from the security. So once we'll click on next, we'll install all these components, and yes, I want to restart my machine if required. Now I'll install all these components, I'll get the machine restarted and again start the video. Now, as the setup is completed and I've restarted the machine, what I see that the installation of web service is completed. Now we'll go back and click on next. Now, when I will click on next, the expected behavior is that the setup should go through, but it will give an error or it will go ahead and check for a prerequisite once again and might give us the confirmation that the .NET is missing because in the previous section, what I was doing is that I selected the .NET extension. That's a common thing, that's a common mistake actually, which is being done by most of the users, assuming that they might have some of the .NET framework installed by any other component, and instead of checking the ASP.NET 4.5 itself or 4.6 itself, they just choose for the extension. So make sure that when you go to add and remove feature, you select this option, not this one. So this is which will install the complete .NET suite for 4.6. That means the latest version. And from here, you can again click on next and just this time just choose an installation because this is a component which doesn't require a restart. So once this gets completed, we'll proceed with setting up the web service SDK and the user portal. Now the installation of 4.6 complete .NET Suite is also completed. Now we'll click on next. And yes, we are getting now all the prerequisites have been successfully confirmed. And then we'll click on next to start the installation. So this will be the first window that you will get and where you can simply check that this is something which will be binded with the default website that's been created by IIS. So, and the application pool will also be the default application pool. If you want, to get it more customized, get the default pool or get another application pool created before going with setup, and then you can choose a respective pool to proceed with the installation. Now, the moment I'll click on close, I'll close the MFA server as well, and I'll go back and I will relaunch MFA server. Now we'll again click on Web Service SDK just to check what is the current status that we are getting now. So I've launched MFA server now and I clicked on Web Service SDK and I am getting now remove Web Service SDK. If you want to check some of the configuration that might have been done in the meanwhile the SDK is installed, close this, go to Server Manager and launch IIS. You might see a new entry in the default IIS pool and that we will be checking right now. Now, once we have completed this part, the next thing will be installation of user portal. So the moment you will open this in the application pool itself, you might find another website named as multi-factor auth web service SDK. So this is a part of the component which is being added. Now, as I said before, that there is a binding that has to be done with the certificate. We'll not do it right now. We'll do it once we complete the user portal installation. So now we'll go back to the MFA server and we'll click on user portal and then we will click on install user portal. Now the link that you see here is the link which you will be giving to your users so that they can access user portal. Now if you go ahead with the default configuration, by default, what will happen that instead of the FQDN of this particular machine, which is MFA conceptswork.com, you might see a local host. So I have manually added this particular entry, and you can also add this, which I will be showing further. Now, if we go ahead with the prompt that we are getting now is that it is going to create an account named as PFUP underscore MFA account, and that account will be added to Phone Factor admin group. So this is actually an account, a service account you can say, which is used by the user portal, and that will be added to Phone Factor admin group as well. We'll click on next and proceed with the rest of the configuration. So the next page will show you whether all the prerequisites are being successfully configured. We'll again click on next. Once you click on next, the same prompt which you were getting in web service SDK, you will get to choose the option of choosing application pool and a site. Try to make sure that the web service SDK as well as this particular user portal lies in the same application pool. This will actually add less administrative work which you can do. And then again, we'll click on next, and this will install the user portal. Now, once the user portal is completely installed, we'll go back to IIS and bind a SSL cert. As I said before, if you want, you can use a self-signed certificate as well, or if you want, you can request a certificate from your internal CA. If this is something that is just you're doing for the testing purpose, try creating a self-signed certificate which can be used with the user portal. If it is something which you are deploying for the production environment, then try getting a public certificate because your users will be accessing this particular portal from the external networks as well. So the fundamental behind this is that the moment they try to access the user portal, they should not get any certificate warning, and this should work seamlessly. Okay, so now the user portal is completely installed. We'll click on close. We'll go back to IIS and we'll close this. We'll relaunch so that the user portal should also get listed. Now this is the default pool of my server, and I'll go to sites. I'll go ahead and check default website, and I can see multi-factor auth is getting listed here now. Now this is something which doesn't have SSL binded or SSL binding. Now, if I'll click on browse, I should get an error or this site should not be reachable, something like that. The most expected error here will be 403. And what you see here at the top is the localhost / MFA. So as you can see that I'm getting a 403. This is something which needs a SSL bind certificate. Now, if this is replaced with the FQDN of this particular system on which you have installed MFF portal, it will be something like this. So for you, if it is abc at abc.contoso.com, then it will be abc.contoso.com / multifactor auth. Or if you have named your server as MFA, then it will be for you mfa.contoso.com multifactor auth. Now, by default, the link that is generated for the website will be localhost multifactor auth, and this is something which can be customized with the FQDN of the machine on which you are installing user portal. The reason why I'm emphasizing on this again and again is that before letting the user know that there is something called MFA being set up for you guys, when you were in a process of informing the user, you can include this link so that the user should go directly to this particular link and get the account set up for themselves. Now we'll go back to IIS. I'll stop the browser, and what I'll do is I'll add a binding for this particular website. For that, I'll click on bindings. I'll click on add. I'll select HTTPS and then I'll select a certificate which I have. I'll click on OK. I'll click on close. I'll quickly reset IIS, and then again we'll launch the user portal to see if now it is working or not. So we'll go to multi-factor auth and now we'll click on browse 443. So this is what you will get once you have the SSL binded, and as you can see that I'm getting a certificate warning here. But what I can do now is I can go ahead and change this name to my server name, which where I have installed, and you can see that the certificate warning is no more getting presented here. Now this is how the look and feel of the user portal is, and once you have set it up perfectly, this is how it will work. Now we'll go back to user portal configuration. The first option that you see here, as I said, that this should be the name of the machine on which you have installed MFA server and a multi-factor auth. This is something which can be updated once you have the website accessible. The second option that we get here will be the primary authentication, that is Windows domain. That means what? That if any of my user will go to this particular portal, he or she can sign in with the Windows ID. So I have a user for which MFA is already set up, and what I'll do is I'll try signing in with that particular user. And what should be the expected behavior is that it should go ahead and complete the MFA, because if I go back and click on user, MFA is configured for this particular user. So this user portal will actually contact the MFA service, and as you can see that I'm getting the information that there'll be a second factor authentication getting completed, and I am getting a call which I will complete, and once it is completed, what you can see is I'm logging into the machine now. Now I can change method and I can change my contact number. When I will click on change method, I can choose any other method like phone call, text message. This is something which is depending upon the configuration that you want your users to go ahead and configure. If we go back to the user portal now and talk about rest of the configuration, so these are all the configuration which you can customize as per your requirement. And one more thing that I would like to test before completing this particular video is that what would be the behavior if the user is added here, that means in the MFA server, but doesn't have MFA enabled. Now, in those cases, what will happen? The users will be prompted to go ahead and set up MFA for themselves. Now, the second tab that you get here will be the administrator. That means you can add admins that can manage user portal. Security questions, you can check for the how many security questions should be available for a particular user, or how many questions should a user answer to get the MFA configured. These are power sessions. These are a couple of URLs which you can customize as per your requirement. The details for this particular URL will be listed in the description in an article itself, which is published by Microsoft. You can go ahead and check that. And then you can add the trusted IP range wherein the user should not be prompted for MFA. That means the MFA for those particular users will not be processed. Now, as you can see here that I have selected the option which says that the security question feedback, or sorry, the fallback is not enabled. That means though I see a list of security questions here, but when the user will try logging in, they will not get the list. So without any delay, what I'll do is I'll quickly add one more user here that will not be enabled for MFA, and we will quickly check what will be the user behavior. So I'll click on close, and as you can see that this icon actually means that this particular user is not enabled for MFA. But what I'll do is I'll go back to the portal, and again, as you can see for localhost, I'm getting a certificate warning. What I'll do is I'll inform my users to use the link which is actually includes the name of the server itself where the service is installed. So the user that I have imported is MFA user at conceptswork.com. I'll go here and I type MFA user at conceptswork.com, and then I'll type in the password. And the next expected behavior here would be that I should be prompted to go ahead and set up MFA. Now, the moment we will click on next, this is what we should get. Now you can go ahead and choose a method to go ahead and set up the MFA. So two things now. If a user has been manually updated to complete MFA from the MFA portal, they can simply go ahead and complete the second factor authentication and they will be signed in. Or else what you can do is you can ask the users to directly go and configure their preferences to get the second factor authentication completed. Now, this was all about how you can implement user portal on the same server where you have MFA server installed. In my next video, I will be going to cover how you can set up MFA with ADFS so that you can leverage on-prem MFA server itself to get the second factor authentication done for those particular applications which are added or which are using ADFS as a claim provider. So now let's quickly discuss about the summary of what all we discussed. The very first thing that we discussed was what is user portal. It's actually an IAS website that has a dependency on IAS and several components like ASP.NET 4.5. This is the current documentation of Microsoft, but with the 2016, since we have 4.6, we installed 4.6. That's even the latest version of what is mentioned in the documentation. We also corely configure dependency on IIS. We also know that there is a SSL certificate that is required to actually get the user portal published externally so that the users should not get any certificate warning. We also check that the default browse from the IIS would work on localhost, but we can change the localhost with the FQDN of our system. We completed the setup process by setting up the web service SDK and installation of the user portal itself. Now, if you guys have any suggestions, feedbacks, or query, please feel free to reach me at learnconceptswork@gmail.com. If you think you have learned something new, please feel free to subscribe, and I welcome all of your comments and suggestions so that I can get this data more improved or I can come up with some sort of information, likewise troubleshooting or how to start with any of the component learning. And thank you so much, guys. Thank you for your time. Have a great day. Bye bye.